What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Kinda Funny Games Cast, episode 72. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside two of the coolest video game dudes.
You fucked it up.
No, I didn't, because we're the coolest dudes in video games. Right. You're two of the coolest video game dudes.
Oh, okay.
There's a method to the madness. Colin
There's a Venn
Moriarty,
diagram.
Pride of Long Island.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How
You're
are
getting
you?
some text messages.
Yeah.
You're blowing up. You're important. Do you think it's about E3? A lot of E3 stuff happening
No,
today.
I don't want to. I can't. Please.
Over here,
hello.
founder of Giant Bomb, Jeff
Hi there.
Gersman.
Hi, how's it going?
It's great. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Thank you for coming in to join us today.
Yeah. It's great to be back in the castle.
Yeah, anytime we invite you right here to the Kinda Funny Manor, or
Yeah.
you pull back the head, you hit the button, we go down the slides into the cave.
Yeah.
Tim Geddes out right now editing all sorts of stuff for Kinda Funny Live too.
course,
Because
yeah.
he's the only one talented enough and ambitious enough to do this. Because Colin and I would run Kinda Funny Live, and it would just be us at this table in front of people.
Yep.
Surrounding us, no chairs. We
And
didn't
it
know what to do.
would be a lot of fun.
No, it's the thing. It's like, at some point you realize, like, oh, the people that can actually do the video stuff, they're the ones that actually know what they're doing. And then at some point you just go like, oh, we're just talent.
Yeah.
Like, we're actually terrible.
And even that is just like, you know, we're stretching it by saying talent.
No, I mean, like, there's like quotes around talent for a reason.
There's quotes
there you
around
go.
the quotes around talent.
What Tim, the one message he gave me today though was to tell you he'd really like to be on a podcast with you someday.
Okay.
Because I only ever call you when Tim's not here.
That's why. That's the only reason I come.
I know,
honestly.
right? You're not a fan.
Yeah. No,
you don't
if
like
Tim's here, I'm like,
he's too young. He's too good looking.
there's
His
like
fashion sense.
There's a smell. I didn't want to bring it up, but there's
I'm glad you waited 4 minutes into the podcast to bring it up.
I wanted to wait until everyone could see and hear the disgust.
Ugh, this Tim Geddes fella.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about video games.
Great.
Because if you didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Kinda Funny Games Cast. Each and every week, 3, sometimes 4 best friends gather on this table, each bringing a topic of video game news and discussion for your amusement. If you like that, head over to patreon.com/kindafunnygames, where you can get each and every episode early, along with a bunch of exclusive perks and goodies, if you have the bucks to toss us. If you don't, head over to youtube.com/kindafunnygames, where you can get each episode broken up topic by topic, day by day, until we post the entire thing as one big MP3 and video.
It's like you only know how to host one thing.
It's like you immediately jump on me. You fucked it. I can't fuck it up if I'm doing it for the first time and I'm bending what people know.
I was just gonna say it's very eerily similar to the PS I Love You, which is so similar to this other show that we used to do.
PS I Love You is very different because I get to talk about we do it. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, okay, yeah, right. I'm
Are you
ripping
all right
off
today?
I'm ripping off Game Over Greggy's show right now, and then I'm ripping off Beyond on PS I Love You. Now
But
I
we
get
made
it.
Beyond, so we can
We can
rip it
rip
off.
off whatever the hell I want.
This is literally your show and this is your platform to rip yourself off.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
Yeah, totally.
Just like you
Jeff,
rip off the quotes around talent as well, and the quotes around talent.
that's a new one to
might
rip
go
off,
on
though.
now.
That's brand new. Thank you. Give me a handshake. Good. I'm glad we get to keep going on. Jeff, here on the Gamescast, we often start with games we're playing.
Okay.
And talk about a little bit about
Innovative,
that.
I like it.
But I know, right? This podcast, cutting edge.
No,
Let me tell you,
totally.
we're doing things nobody else is doing with a microphone.
Absolutely.
Exactly. What I want to talk to you about, and I think the marquee title here is Overwatch.
Overwatch. Yeah.
You have been playing Overwatch. For days on end now, people have been tweeting about Overwatch.
Yeah.
People were foaming at the mouth
People
to
are
get this
crazy
game.
about Overwatch.
I don't get it. Why are people so crazy about Overwatch?
Well, people really like Team Fortress 2, right?
Yeah, from what I hear, they had hats.
Yeah, no, they had hats. Like, this is a game where like it's just full skins instead of hats. Done.
Yeah.
And then it's pretty much the same. Yeah. No, it is a class-based shooter like a Team Fortress 2, but with more classes to choose from. I really like its art style. And they've found a way to make the classes very friendly to play. They've given them abilities that are not unlike a MOBA. You have an ultimate ability.
Nerds.
Yeah, it's got that sort of stuff. But it's TF2. It doesn't go, it's not lanes. It's not Battleborn,
See, and that was, I think, not our...
Or Paragon.
Exactly. The problem in what Colin and I have been talking about is people who have been on the outskirts watching from afar. Like, oh, this MOBA thing happening.
Right.
I've jumped in and tried. I'm
It's a
like,
nightmare.
nope.
It's a nightmare.
Not what I want to
Nope,
play.
not at all.
So every one of these shooters that comes up and it's like, it's MOBA inspired or has MOBA tendencies. I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck this game. There's no reason I'd
So
play
this doesn't have very much of that at all. Literally,
Yeah.
it's just, the idea of having these abilities and stuff like that are on cooldowns. That's kind of the MOBA thing. The rest
Sure.
of it is TF2. It's escorting a payload somewhere. It's defending points. It's capturing points. But all the different, character class stuff from a TF2. So you've got, healer roles and assaults and tanks and, like the sort of stuff you expect to see from a class-based game.
Other than it being, the next coming of TF2. Like for you, what makes it stand out? Because it's one of those, I feel like we've had so many multiplayer shooters. There's been so many good things.
Right.
There's Borderlands, there's this, and all of a sudden it was, all right, here is Battleborn, here is this one, here is Paragon. It's like, I don't know what the hell's happening anymore.
Yeah, well, I think everyone probably came to the same decision a couple of years ago where they're like, man, we have got to figure out a way to make MOBA money from the console kids.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? And then, Paragon was born, and then Hobby Grade Battleborn started its wheels turning or whatever. And so now all these bets are starting to hit the marketplace. I think some of them pay off better than others. Whereas Overwatch is a little weird because, apparently that started from Blizzard's MMO ambitions of making this thing. So some of these assets just came out of some different game. And then they were like, that's not going to work out. That's a terrible idea. Why don't we pivot into making a TF2 style game with these characters? And they did. They actually, they nail it.
Yeah.
It's quite good for what it is. I hate Team Fortress 2.
Wow, okay.
I don't like the characters. I don't
Blasphemy.
enjoy playing it. I don't like class-based shooters generally either, except for custom class type stuff like a Call of Duty or something like that, where I can go like, okay, this is the gun I want. But when it's be like, okay, you need to play your class like a MOBA, like some of these other games, I don't play games with other people I know often enough to get the most out of those types of games. So generally speaking, those games never work out for me. Overwatch is well made enough that I'm having more fun with it than I ever expected to have, but this morning I actually woke up an hour early just going I'm gonna go play some Overwatch.
Damn.
Which is weird.
No, that's the sign though, right?
Yeah.
That's always the thing for me when I can tell I'm really into a game when it is like, oh man, I have an hour. I'm totally gonna jump in and do just this little bit of thing.
But at the end of that hour, I started to see how it will unfold because I started to care. And I started to I've been playing healers, which I don't play a lot of, but they've made healer classes actually fun to play.
Okay.
And someone needs to do it because no one else was doing it.
No, it's never been fun to be the healer. Sit in the back.
But when I'm healing these people and then they're not getting the job done, they're not hitting their shots, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. At some point, if you start to care, you start to get mad. And that was how I see myself no longer playing Overwatch in about a week or two.
And so that's my question. How many hours in right now would you say you are where that's starting to be the driving?
4.
Okay.
I played a little bit as soon as the servers came up, played a little bit last night and then put another hour in this morning. So,
right.
I have not played a ton of it, but first impression is really impressive. And like I said, I think they've made a better one of these kind of games, a better Team Fortress 2 in my view.
Sure.
From the limited time I've played it.
See, it's the talk of that's what scares me about it, and that was what for the Division when I hit 30 was the big thing for me of I'm done with this because I saw the fact that okay, cool, and now we're to the point that if I want to get the most out of this, I need a squad.
Yeah.
I need people I roll with every night, and this is all we play.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's never gonna be me. Even Overwatch, right now I'm kind of playing 2 or 3 matches of it and then stopping.
Yeah,
and then maybe half an hour later I'll go I'm going to play a little bit more. I'll launch it again and play 1 or 2 more. But it's not the sort of game where I'm sitting down and okay, for a 6-hour stretch, this is what I'm doing.
Sure. And you're not alone. I think I saw Mike Drucker last night tweeting about it. I'm watching this, and then I jumped over and played this, and now it was somebody else actually. Drucker was talking about stop watching Bachelorette or whatever to go play Overwatch, and somebody else was like, all right, that's enough Overwatch. I'm gonna go play Fallout now.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. It feels like a good short burst game for me. And maybe that'll help, but also that makes it impossible for me to go hey everybody, let's get together at 8 o'clock and play this game because I'm just never gonna
play for 15 minutes.
Yeah,
and then
I'm never gonna be that person.
Sure.
So this is not the game for me, but that said, I am actually enjoying it quite a bit.
What do you see what do you hear in terms of longevity, right? Because I was blown away because when the betas were going, I saw people tweet about it and they were really into it, and it was from people I expected it. Boogie was up there talking about how great it was, and then over the weekend, it really seemed like everybody was like that Dave Chappelle meme where there's oh, y'all got any more of that Overwatch?
Totally,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was what the hell's going
people
on?
went weird for Overwatch in a way that I didn't expect. But then, totally, the day before it came out, I had this moment where I was like, oh, shit, man. I would actually really like to play some Overwatch. But yeah.
Do you think it'll burn out?
I think if you look at Blizzard's track record for adding content to its games and all that sort of stuff, if you assume that they will take a similar approach with something like Overwatch, I think they'll probably hit a good cadence with it. Maybe not right out of the gate, but I think they'll probably be adding characters and maps and that sort of stuff along the way.
And so I played one match last night, and it was totally I got to see what everybody's raving about.
Yeah.
Jumped in, played it, and I was like, cool. It's a first-person shooter team game. I'm probably good. I also had a weird bug where my screen was in shadow mode.
Great.
Where everything was really dark and I was running around. But my question, I guess, is since you already have the heroes, you already have. Is it just that I'm unlocking skins? Am I unlocking weapons?
Yeah.
Like, what's
every
the progression?
time your bar fills up, you gain XP to gain levels. Every time that bar fills up, you get a loot box which has 5 items in it. They could be sprays for spraying your logo on walls, additional voice lines and taunts, and then there are skins for each character that also unlock.
Gotcha.
And then they're selling those for basically $2 a box if you want to go that route. Best value, you can spend $50 for, they're $40 for 50 boxes or whatever, whatever it is. But then at that point, like, you're basically destroying the whole progression, which if you just like playing the game and want a certain skin and this is maybe the best way to get it, I guess I could see someone going down that road, but that seems crazy.
I mean, that to me, that's what it speaks to with what you're saying, right? And the fact of like, it's okay, I'll play for 30 minutes, 2 matches, whatever it is, but there it is. It's I can get in, I get out, and there is no, oh, I'm so close to the next level, which would unlock for sure this gun, which would give me on this path tree or da-da-da-da.
Yeah. The reason that I would, back when it was maybe the biggest thing in the world, like I would sink that kind of time into a Call of Duty.
Right.
For a few years there, where it was like, okay, I'm going to actually sit down and play this for 6 hours straight.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that Overwatch will have a pretty good-sized audience for some time to come. It seems like a pretty safe bet, really. And not just because it's Blizzard. I know they seem to, like Blizzard has its fans. They have their own convention,
Yeah.
So people go nuts for Blizzard stuff no matter what. But I think that there is some quality to this game. There's quite a lot, and a Blizzard level of quality even. So I think they've done quite well, especially when you consider that this is probably some stuff that they thought they might never make their money back on because it was some MMO they were trying to make for years and years and years. The idea that they pivoted and turned it into this thing is kind of nuts.
It's too bad that Overwatch is being drowned out by Battleborn. That's all you hear is people talking about that Battleborn.
Oh, just nonstop. The numbers are huge.
Yeah, it's doing what?
I mean, it's on one hand, I feel for those guys for kind of shipping into this window where, I mean, you have Epic with a more traditional shooter MOBA with Paragon, and then Overwatch kind of taking its a lot of its shine too, but. Also, I don't know how much you guys have played, but I just think Battleborn's a bad game.
Oh, really?
Regardless of when it shipped, like that game doesn't feel good. It doesn't look great. The situational awareness is really low. Like just kind of across the board, I think that game's got real problems.
It was the same thing for me with Overwatch, where it was coming up. We had talked about it. Who knows what's going to happen? It's probably going to be a disaster. But like, you looked at video for it and I was like, oh, it kind of looks like Borderlands. That's neat enough. And then it came out and I was like, well, I'm not this guy. There's a million other games I want to play right now.
Right, yeah. And I think that, ideally they look at that game, they learn some lessons about encounter design and stuff that they then filter into Borderlands 3.
Yeah.
Because if you think about how like the multiplayer loot shooter has changed since Borderlands 1, like Borderlands 3 kind of has to be Destiny or the Division levels of multiplayer, stuff to compete at this point. So
yeah, that was the thing about. I mean, it wasn't even a call because it was so obvious that Battleborn was going to crash and burn. I mean, that was so fucking obvious.
Just
seeing that game like a year ago or something. Like the first time I saw it was just like, okay, this demo seems kind of bad, but maybe there's more to it than this. And then every time they showed it, it was like,
And it's not like to your point, it's not like there's a dearth of similar like-minded games. Because that was the thing we were talking about was like, well, to me, like Overwatch, not knowing much about it, I'm very much like a console guy. Like, I was like, this seems like a game with MOBA tendencies. This is obviously going to eat Battleborn's lunch. And then there's Paragon on the other side. But then there's like Destiny and the Division, which are not MOBAs, but are like persistent shooters where people are playing these games. And what it came down to was like, it's not so much the genre, but like how much time can a person possibly invest in these games that require you to play them for months or maybe even years at a time if you really want to get the most out of them. And so Battleborn was obviously going to be the odd man out because Paragon had the backing of a first party. Obviously Overwatch, which I was surprised, by the way, that Sony got behind Paragon so much, but they did. Overwatch, obviously, is a huge Blizzard game, and then you have these games from Ubisoft and Activision that are obviously going to get a huge push. And so, like, I feel bad for them too, but this was a bet made by a studio that has way too much money probably and knew that they could have a failure. And I don't know if they're stupid enough to they're clearly not stupid at all. Actually, over there, they knew that this game probably wasn't going to fly. I'm surprised that 2K really wanted to get involved with them on this because
like post Evolve, especially 2K, this is obviously a different developer, all that other stuff, but like 2K seems to want to make some esports money and now they're trying to turn NBA 2K into like an esports.
We
thing.
figure it's like you were talking about with right now, right? The tracks get laid so early, and by the time you realize you're bailing off the cliff, like what do? You
Yeah,
can't do anything.
You're throwing good money after bad at that point. You just like hope that you can maybe make it back. But
right.
yeah, it's
it's the point you made, which I think is an astute point, that these bets are made years ahead of time. You saw this pay off with like Ubisoft style checkbox games. You saw this with open world games. And you're still seeing the kind of the remnants of that. And what I think what the developers had to have been smart enough, and the publishers specifically, maybe 2 years ago, is to be like, we're too late on this bet. We need to figure out like what the next bet is. It's the same thing that happened with the Race to the Bottom on mobile. Almost, it's like, what is the next thing? We have our open world games now. We have our MOBAs on console. Now we have all these persistent shooters and all these kinds of things. Like, what is the next? Is it a massive, almost I feel like maybe the next thing that people wanted to get involved with 18 months ago at the embryonic state is something like a very ambitious Witcher 3 style open world game or whatever, where it's very quest based and very huge and very lore driven, because I feel like there's just too many of these games.
You're right, but at the same time, like The Witcher is not going to sell hats forever. Whereas like if they can, if you look at what League of Legends does, or even Dota, like money wise, like you get that gleam in your eye, right? If you're the game developer,
sure.
if you're kind of like money focused a little bit, you're going to go like, okay, no one has cracked this nut on consoles. Like League of Legends can't work on a PlayStation. It's just too specific. Like Smite had some success. Other MOBAs have kind of come along, but not done it to that level. So I think you have a lot of developers that still think that money's out there, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure we have not seen the last attempt at like trying to capture the console audience with something that is MOBA like. Yeah. It's just too popular. Too many people are watching League of Legends streams that probably don't want to play League of Legends for them to not at least try. And yeah, I think it's a huge mistake. I just don't think that they're going to be able to crack that nut the same way that League has.
No, I do think that there's a point to be made that I think a gamer is a gamer, and I think there's genre specific things that we all like to try to do, or the platforms like to play on. But I do think the console gamer is a specific beast. And you can try to break them, and there are examples. I mean, even the fact that we're playing shooters in a very competitive kind of way shows that the PC has bled in, the PC kind of ecosystem has bled into consoles, and that happened a long time ago. But to me, it's like, like there needs to be a different tact or whatever. I really feel like there's more. I feel like examples from Techland with Dying Light, or CD Projekt with Witcher 3, or these other studios is like dump a lot of money into something that's actually like console centric and maybe single player with some multiplayer functionality or whatever, and this is kind of more what we do on console, and that's where you can make your money. And then you can sell DLC or something like that afterwards, and you don't necessarily have to have these microtransactions.
I think those messages are getting driven home, though, right? And the fact that, like, what we're talking about right now, people trying to force this round into a square hole or whatever, right?
Right.
Like, they know, and it's the same way when you look back, and it was that, hey, here's Tomb Raider with its multiplayer suite, and everybody's like, fuck you, and like reviews were like, the game's great, except that here's the doc on the score, and like they put out Rise Of, and they're like, all right, nothing, no, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like we
learned the lesson.
The rubber band snaps back eventually, but everybody gets so gung ho on where to put a multiplayer into everything.
BioShock 2, it was like, what the hell is there even a multiplayer?
Right, yeah. But at some point that just becomes like almost an opportunity cost question of like, are you going to invest in this single player, very long, high budget kind of bespoke content campaign that people are going to play through once and kind of move on from, get your $60, hopefully, or $40, when everything gets on sale, or are you going to try to make something that has this like repeatable revenue that you can then like, okay, well, also what if we made a mobile version of it? What if we did this? Like, there are too many other revenue streams out there. Like, everyone wants to tap into that, and you only have those studios that are really bucking the trend. I mean, even Uncharted has multiplayer now at this point, right? But like, The Witcher is an anomaly, and it's a beautiful one at that. And those are risks that they can afford to take because they're this crazy independent studio that's out there.
Yeah.
I don't know what their books look like. I'm sure they look great now. But, before that, you had like companies like EA years ago saying like, oh, we think single player's dead and all that other stuff. And no, obviously not. But the idea of just a straight up single player game that they're not going to try to just like monetize the hell out of you after the fact on like some kind of like, well, here's a leaderboard focused repeatable single player mode, VR missions like Metal Gear, but like everyone's
the Batman challenge,
or Mass Effect got multiplayer at some point.
Right,
You're like, why? Like, who wants that? Like, apparently people do. They actually sold like quite a few of those weird blind boxes.
And that's the weird thing when you get into what you talk about with the mobile market all the time, those white whales. The people who are the ones who it's like, sure, like, I don't care if if 5% of the audience comes over and really gets hooked on this multiplayer and they're putting money in day after day, year after year,
Right.
that's a different story.
And we're at a point where, yeah, like, you know, Uncharted 4 has, you know, like dances and all this other like blind box crap in it.
Right.
That I think it's a bad look for those types of games. It makes them look a little desperate in a way.
I agree. I think a lot of it was, it reminds me, you know, being kind of more Sony centric, I guess it reminds me of like when they tried to do the online passes and then removed them. And And obviously the intent with Uncharted is multiplayer, even though I think that people think that that's a step above a lot of the tacked on multiplayer is the way to make you not sell the game back or whatever. There's definitely very transparent reasons that they're doing it.
Yeah.
I just hope that developers and publishers have taken a look at some of the great examples that seem to have bucked the publisher or monetary trends going on. And Machine Games is a great example to me with Wolfenstein, which I think is a fucking immaculate game, especially the DLC, with the exception of course, we talked many times the intro, which is awful. Of Wolfenstein.
The beginning of Wolfenstein,
which is fucking terrible. But that game is awesome, and they were like, fuck all of this, we don't need multiplayer like any other Wolfenstein games that were very tacked on. We need just a great, it's like a 15-hour campaign in a first-person shooter. It's just, you don't see that very often. And so, but that game did well, and I'm sure they're making a sequel, and the thing I hope is that they're, you know, these aren't common, but I think they're common because we're so risk averse. And so I hope that everyone's kind of looking at these things and being like, we don't need to maybe rewrite the way we play on console specifically when there's people out there that are probably by the several millions buying this Machine Games fucking Wolfenstein game, knowing that there's only 15 hours of content in it, and they're going to get a nice meaty DLC pack for actually half the price or so of the game itself. But they're willing to pay for that, and so I hope that there's a problem. It's what we always talk about with Gone Home, what we talk about with even something if you like Firewatch or something, where everyone's like, these games are too expensive at $20 when you're only getting an hour and a half or 2 hours out of them. Like, we can't look at games like that anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely not. That's pretty dated at this point, you know, and the quality of the experience matters a lot. I think that's, you know, like Wolfenstein's a great example. I think Doom is another one. Like, it has multiplayer. It would actually be better without it, because the Doom campaign is similarly amazing. And the multiplayer is like a thing they made, and you look at it and go like, well, I guess that functions. Yeah, it works as intended.
I turned into a demon.
Like you kind of are doing like this Halo-ish thing that has nothing to do with Doom, whereas the campaign is this like transcendent, great twist on original Doom. And
yeah, you were one of the big. We talked about Doom last week on the thing, but we were all super early in it, and I kept bringing up the fact like you were the one over the weekend where I was like, you were tweeting like, this campaign gets better the longer you play.
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
Yeah, I got back I was in LA for a few days last week, and basically like literally got back and sat down and finished Doom. I was like an hour and a half away from the end of it, and I was like, I need to get this done.
Yeah,
and it was a similar feeling to something like Wolfenstein, where you're like, man, they don't make games like this anymore, and it's amazing that they were able to get it done.
Yeah, props to Bethesda, by the way, for putting their money where their mouth is with these kinds of games, and I think they're probably you know, Pete Hines and all those guys are probably like, well, like, we have this market cornered for now until everyone gets smart.
It's really great.
Rubber band right back to
occasionally they do put out a game that performs well.
Yeah, buzzing.
It's great when they do.
Yeah, Fallout, man. That's what I've been playing. And it's weird because I feel like I'm forcing myself to play it at this point, because I jumped in and it was I've been in this thing where I have to be in the mood to play a game. You know what I mean? Like I have to, like Ratchet and Clank the other day, where I woke up one day and I was like, I'm in the mood for Ratchet and Clank, and I played it and I was like, awesome, this is great. I'm glad I put it off. And then Fallout came out and I had been in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna get back from this Baltimore trip and I'm gonna sit down on Saturday and just play Fallout. And got there, installed it all, started playing it, and I'm just like,
so you went to Bethesda, came back, and played a Bethesda game. That's what got you in the mood to play it. Okay, all right.
No. It was just the fact that I was ready. It was finally here, and I enjoyed Fallout 4, and I was like ready for more of it. And then I jumped in, and it was totally the thing of like, wait, where did I leave off? And what was my save? And where's my power armor? I was walking around last night like, what? Where the fuck is
you leave
it?
that thing behind. You're like, I think it's on the map somewhere.
And exactly. And like, I'm fucking in Far Harbor, and it shows on my little thing like, oh, your power armor's back. And I'm like, oh, great. I went back, nowhere on the map.
Awesome.
And like, it was easy enough, luckily, to go find it, because I just fucking dropped it at Sanctuary, where I dropped everything.
Right. Yeah. I ended up barely using the power armor playing that game. Like, I needed it. There's one spot where I needed it.
Yep.
And then aside from that, I was like, you know, and it was just like, fine. I'm just gonna. I don't need that stuff. It drains resources that I might want to save for later.
Yeah, and that
hoarding stuff.
That's just Fallout, right? Of hoarding everything, and that was the thing of like I'd been hoarding it forever, and jumped out into Far Harbor, and I'm playing, and it's like, oh, guess what? The whole fucking island's got fog all over it, and it's irradiated. You're gonna get rads everywhere. And I was like, I'm just gonna keep going, and I finally I started burning through everything. I'm like, fuck, let's go get the power armor. I'm like running around trying to get it, and I'm in it, and now I have like 37 power cores.
Right. Yeah. I'm just stop around forever. Like
exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't perform well. Like, you know, I'm playing on PS4, of course.
Right. That's where
I've still only had, now it's 2 instances where it was like, whoa, hey, this frame rate's garbage all of a sudden.
Yeah, I had a few spots. There was a good late game thing on the blimp where everyone went crazy and tried to kill me, and so there's like I don't know, like 20 guys. Yeah, basically it's like 2 frames a second at that point. You're like, how did this? Like, at what point does the platform holder need to step in and go, dude, no?
Yeah.
They certainly didn't with Skyrim either. So
right, yeah.
They played the first 10 hours. Like,
it is unbelievable how these like. I do want to like kind of meditate on that point more often or more in the future about like we really have jumped the shark with giving Bethesda a pass on their like it's a Bethesda game, you know, kind of thing. And I'm like, I think that a lot of people have identified this long ago, and I think even I've been a guilty culprit with this. While I'm like, well, they're so ambitious, and then you see a game like Witcher 3 or whatever, and you're like, what the fuck's your excuse now?
Right, and it's not like they're broke. I mean, you know, like they're not the largest publisher, you know, they're not the largest studio in the world or anything like that. That team is, you know, is still somewhat reasonably sized as I understand it. But why?
Yeah.
At some point, like with the amount of money they made, you know, the amount of you know, like Skyrim had legs for years and years and years, and you know that's probably still selling decently for them at whatever price they have it on the PC. You know, so why not reinvest a little more of that back into making sure that thing runs well, or you know, maybe it's just one of those things where like just we literally don't understand enough about the process. There's actually no way to solve that problem.
Except for to just build it from you know,
or scale it so far back that
it's not
you know,
Fallout
that it's
anymore.
Not,
Yeah.
it's not one of those games anymore,
Right.
which I would actually be okay with.
I would too, just because I always felt like VATS specifically was always an excuse for. I mean, in the 3D games was always an excuse for just bad shooting mechanics. I mean, the game's kind of somewhere in between like a shooter and more of something like Morrowind or whatever, where you run around hacking shit or whatever, but it doesn't feel right. So I mean, because I only played Fallout 4 for 25 hours when it came out or whatever, which only. And I was
only 25.
Yeah, but like to me, like, and this is kind of reminiscent of what I'm playing right now, is that I've been really trying to be, and the audience knows, I think, but I've been really trying to be beholden since we left IGN to just not play games because I feel like I have to. So like,
isn't it beautiful? Doesn't it feel good?
Yeah, it does. So I'm like,
man.
I used to be like, I gotta play this so I could talk about this, and I got to experience this, and I've just been moving on and on and on. So thanks, Kevin. When Homefront and Doom came out, I was really excited about Homefront. Obviously, bad signs abound for that game.
Yeah.
I played it and I just kind of stuck with it for a while, and I'm like, what? This game fucking sucks. Then I went on to, you know, I played Doom a little bit, but I'm like, I just want to play something. Like, I just want to play something. And what did I do? I don't want to rehash it too much because we talked about it on PS I Love You. I was like, I'm going to go download Miss Pac-Man, Galaga, and Brick Breaker on PS4 and just play those. And that's all I did this week. I was like, I'm going to play fucking Miss Pac-Man. Yep. And I was just feeling it.
Yeah.
So what a great game. I mean, I've always loved that game, but what a great game. But what I'm playing right now is Downwell.
Yeah.
Came to Vita, and we only acknowledge games when they come to Vita.
Of course. Yeah.
Never heard of it till it comes to Vita.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize you can actually hold your Vita sideways like in Sunflower or something like that. So I've been playing it normal. I just read that on Devolver's tweet today, I think, actually.
That's a cool way to play that game.
Yeah. And I'm feeling it. I think it's a cool game. I don't think it's for everyone. I don't think it's a game Greg's gonna like, although I'm interested to see what you think of it.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting, straightforward idea that really revolves around gameplay. And I think we're losing a lot. I love narrative. I love characters. I love setting and environmental storytelling. But man, are we losing sight of gameplay a lot. And I think that these games, similar to Miss Pac-Man or Galaga and his other shit I was playing, it's just all about, there's no excuses. It's all about the way the game plays. And I think it's a really fun game.
That's my problem with playing Fallout right now and coming to it after platinuming Uncharted, after doing a whole bunch of Ratchet, these like polished experiences where it all soars. I'm jumping into Fallout, and yeah, it is this whole thing of like when I played Fallout originally, it was very much, this is my character. I know what I would make these choices.
Right.
I'm not gonna bilk you for money. And now it's like, well, it's the last DLC, and there's no morality, and none of it really matters. So I'm like, yeah, give me all your money. And I'm just like playing it because I don't care. And so it's just the gameplay mechanics.
That's the Bethesda DLC has always done that to me as well, where it's like you're coming back to it so long after the fact that any sense of like cohesive storytelling or anything with your
who
character,
I am or was,
you're just like, whatever. I'm just playing through this like one-off content that has no bearing on anything else. Yeah, that is a. That is a really good point. But yeah, Downwell's a great example. I mean, you know, of like this rise of indie gaming we've seen over the last 5 years or whatever you want to call it. You know, it's like there's a marketplace for games like that again. You know, like maybe dating back. Well, what would you call like Geometry Wars was maybe like
the original Xbox Live
the
Arcade
kickoff
area.
of that. You know. Has kind of given those games a place again, and that's been really great. The idea that like, and then that's where the value conversation gets weird again, because you know it's like you start to compare like, oh, how many hours of this and all this other stuff. Like, yeah, Downwell's just a great feeling game. I started playing it on iOS because that's where it came out originally. I think
that's where it was beta tested for Vita.
Right. Yeah. Then they beta tested further on the PC.
Yep.
And then then in its final form, it has now appeared on the Vita. And yeah, that's just a great tight little game.
And correct me if I'm wrong, and I could be wrong about this, but it's a Japanese game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting because you just don't. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty connected to the Japanese industry, being a Sony nerd or whatever, but I just don't feel like we see many indie games.
I don't know that I'd say that Sony is pretty well connected to the Japanese game industry these days, but sure, yeah.
I mean, like to me, it's you just see a lot of indies coming out of Western Europe. You see a lot of indies coming out of Middle America. You see, but I was like, when I went to the guy's Twitter account, and I noticed it was in Japanese, and I was like, huh. I mean, I'm sure it's there. I'm just like, I can't recall like a really bite-sized downloadable game I played recently that it was from Japan.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're getting a lot of these C-tier garbage JRPGs and a lot of other stuff. We're getting some cool stuff like Neo and stuff. But by and large, I was like, this is actually the most interesting component of this game is that it's not Western. Which is cool.
And that's been, stuff like Bit Summit that they've been running out there, just trying to find a good home or a good platform for people to promote their indie games in Japan. I think the 8-4 guys have kind of helped out with some of that stuff. Like, and even like going backwards into that market, I think they worked on like Shovel Knight for the Japanese market, which is a really crazy concept to me for some reason. But yeah, just like there's more of a place for individuals or small teams making games now. And I think that's been great. It's been the nice thing about the PC is that stuff is coming out constantly. It's the nice thing and the worst thing.
You can't turn the faucet off.
How
do you separate the wheat from the chaff?
They went to the valve and turned Steam this way too far, and now every time you load up the front page of Steam, there's 9 more things that are like ports from Android and stuff. It's like, here's this $1.49 game that is absolute garbage that we're hoping some YouTube guy will catch on and stream it. And yeah, it's real weird out there now.
Yeah. That's what we've been playing. What have you been playing? Let us know in the comments below. But also know that this segment was brought to you by Loot Crate. Loot Crate is a monthly subscription box service for epic geek gamer items and pop culture gear. For less than $20 a month, you get 4 to 8 items that include licensed gear, apparel, collectibles, unique one-of-a-kind items, and more. Make sure you head to lootcrate.com/KFgames and enter the code KFGames to save $3 on a new subscription. This week, I shouldn't say this month, June's theme. We'll be exploring some of the ways things can go wrong with dystopia.
Nice. My favorite.
Featuring classics RoboCop, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and The Matrix, and new faves BioShock Infinite and Fallout 4, we've got a figure, cool collectibles, and, of course, our dystoperific monthly tea.
Never mind, I'm not excited anymore.
Remember, you only have until the 19th at 9 p.m. Pacific to subscribe and receive that month's crate, and when the cutoff happens, Jack, that's it. It's over. So go to lootcrate.com/KFgames, enter the code KFGames, and you save $3 on your new subscription today.